Okay, we'll start on Yud Testament Beis, and we had a machlekes, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. We'll start from Rabbi Yossi. I don't even know how to describe where it is. It's about 10 lines down from the wide lines, the middle wide lines. It's very wide lines. It's middle wide line. It's 10 lines down from the middle wide line. Let's see if that's correct. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 exactly. Okay. Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. It's less of a learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash. For Shlema, for David Ben Sarah, it's prayer from my father, Mary Madel, and for Chaim Ben Sarah, Jimmy. Okay, so we were discussing Shaul's daughters. They were apparently both married to David. So they asked Rabbi Yossi, how did David marry 2 sisters? So we got 2 answers. Rabbi Yossi answered that he married Meirav, who's the older one, and then she died. Then he married Michal, which that's allowed to marry a sister after the death of the wife right. Marry the sister of your. Marry your sister-in-law after the wife after the first one passed away. The second answer was Rabbi Yeshua ben Karchi said that it was Kedushei Tos. He was never really married to Meirav. So yesterday we went through why was it Kedushei Tos? What was wrong over there? Because Shaul had owed money to David because he killed Goliath. He promised him, so there was considered he would be meichel that loan. And the rule is that when you meichel a loan, that doesn't make that's not a good marriage. You have to actually give something, not just forgive something. Now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi, Hi tinas ishti es Michal my darish beit. So the pasuk that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was using to say that it was Kedushei Tos, because he said, give me my wife, Michal. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha learned from that. He says, Michal is his wife, but Meirav is not his wife, because it was never a marriage there. So what does Rabbi Yossi do that say that there was a marriage to Meirav? So what does he medayek from that pasuk? So the Gemara says Rabbi Yossi letamei. Rabbi Yossi has his own logic. The Tanya was starting a brisa. Rabbi Yossi, he would learn. There's a confusion in the psukim. Ksiv v'yikach hamelach shnei bnei Ritzpa basaya sheyolda l'Shaul esadmeni v'esmutibaishes v'schameshes bnei Michal sheyolda l'Adriel hamachulasi. The Geimer. This is talking about when there was a famine, a plague, and they asked why was this coming about, and they said it's because they harmed the Givonim, which was this tribe that converted. Apparently, they were like water carriers and wood choppers for the city of Noiv Yerakainim. And because they lost their job after Shaul killed out Noiv, Shaul had Noiv killed because they supported David when he was running away. Anyway, after they were killed out, they lost their jobs. They didn't have to. So because they were suffering, so this famine came on the people. They said, "Well, how would you like to be forgiven?" They said, "Well, we'd like Shaul's children to be killed." Now, the Gemara says in other places that shows that they weren't Rahmanim, they were cruel, because they don't gain anything from that. It's not like you said, I want money. You want money? Okay, so you lost money, you want money, that's fine. Just to have someone else hurt and you don't get anything is just cruelty. The Gemara says, therefore, when you're looking for a shidduch, you have to look for compassion. And if someone is not compassionate, then you have to suspect maybe they come from that tribe. Anyway, so he wants they gave over these children to be killed. And it says in this verse, it says 5 sons of Michal that was given birth, that was born to Adriel Hamachalasi. Now, Adriel was not the husband that. See, both this complicated stories here, but Meirav was supposed to go to David, but she ended up going to Adriel. Michal was supposed to be married to David, which she was, but she ended up also going to Palti ben Laish, was this other husband. And then David got Michal back afterwards. But it says over here that the 5 sons of Michal, and Michal didn't that were born to Adriel. That's the wrong daughter. It was Meirav that had the 5 sons from Adriel. So it says V'chila Adriel was she given to Adriel to be her husband? Michal was given to Palti ben Laish. Michal bita Eishes David Palti ben Laish. Shaul took David's wife and gave her to Palti ben Laish. What we're doing is we're doing a comparison. We're comparing Meirav's marriage to Adriel to Michal's marriage to Palti. Just like since Michal was married to David, she was not allowed to be with Palti ben Laish. So that would have been a sin. Also, Meirav was not allowed to be with Adriel because she was married to David. Okay.
And Adriel's first.
Adriel is her second husband. Now, we said before that they weren't really married, but that was the other opinion. This is the opinion that they were married. Right? That was yesterday we were learning the Kiddushei Tos, Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. Today we're learning Rabbi Yossi. Was the other opinion. Yeah. Now the Gemara says Rabbi Shua ben Karcha nami yakseves chamishes b'nei Michal bashal. What does Rabbi Shua ben Karcha do with this pasuk that we just learned? That there was this mix-up in the psukim, and it's coming to tell us a comparison. But according to Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, there is no comparison because Meirav to Adriel was perfectly acceptable because David was never married to Meirav. So what does he do with this pasuk? Amalach Rabbi Yeshua would respond, Michal Yalda, Meirav Yalda. Whatever the case is, Michal didn't give birth to these children. It was Meirav that gave birth. Michal didn't have any children, right? Is that I think that's the. Meirav gave birth. Meirav Yalda Michal Gadla. What happened was Meirav gave birth to them, but Michal raised them. So therefore, she's considered the parent. Lamdacha, this comes to teach you. Anyone that raises an orphan in his house, the pasuk considers it as if he gave birth to them, to him. Yaldai. Something going on. I have a note in my Gemara that says, bring it from a Chacham Tzvi. No, I have this Gemara that I have is it's the Gerari Shas, and in there someone I have no clue who did it, but someone wrote these notes, and it wasn't done professionally. I mean, it was typed, but the star that goes to it is like handwritten in, It's so anyway.
Maybe the author himself.
The author of the Shastra of Ashi, or maybe it was Gerari. Nassim Gerari, that's his name. Anyway, he wanted to make like a shas with he put in some tzedek in the back and some Lubavitcher things. There's other things to it. Anyway, over here he says, from here you can learn the Kal V'chaimer, that if someone is created through the Sefer Yetzirah, like a Goylam, a Goylam, right? Someone's created a Goylam, you can count them for a minyan. Because if someone raises an orphan, it's considered like he gave birth to him. So for sure, someone that creates a person through Sefer Yetzirah also has to raise him, I guess, is considered. I don't get the what's going on.
When it comes to adoption, I hear it's easier to adopt a Gentile than it is to adopt a Yid. Really?
Yeah, that's all right. That could be. But question is, when it comes to the mitzvah of Pru Ravu, could you fulfill, because the Gemara here says it's if you gave birth, can you fulfill the mitzvah of Pru Ravu by raising another child? So the Gemara said, actually, not the Gemara, one of the commentaries says, one second, if a person had children, but they passed away, like babies, like they were born, so then, and he raised orphans, so then he has both. First of all, he gave birth, he fulfilled the giving birth. Okay, they didn't survive, but then he has the second part of raising. So then he would cover both. Sort of Shlomo Kluger, he writes that, beginning of Ebenezer. Okay, the next Gemara, there's a mnemonic for it. Chanina Kara, Yechanan ve'ishtay, Elazar u'Geula, Shmuel v'limude Simon. This usually it doesn't do that. Usually the way it does the mnemonic is it just gives me the names of the authors, or it's going to give me just what they said. Here it gives me the name plus what they said. Chanina, his comment, Rabbi Chanina's comment was Kara, Rabbi Yechanan's comment was Ishtay, Elazar's comment was Gula, and Shmuel's comment was Limude. So it's you have more spelled out in this mnemonic. Okay, we'll take a look at this. Okay. Rabbi Chanina Aimer Mehacha, the last statement that we said, that whoever raises an orphan in his house, it's as if he gave birth to them. He says from the following pasuk, it says, "Vatikrena loy hashchenes shame sham lemar yulad ben lanami." The people said after Rus gave birth to a child, they said that Nami had a son. It says Nami Yalda. Nami didn't have a son. Alay Rus Yalda, was Rus had a son. Alay Rus Yalda vid Nami Gidla Lefik Nikra al Shma. She gave her to Nami to raise, and therefore it's considered that Nami was the parent. Rabbi Yechon says from the following source. The Ishtay HaYehudis, his wife, sounds like his Jewish wife. This is referring to Kalev, as we'll see in a moment. Yoldas Yered Avigdar V'Gaimer Ela B'nei Bisya Basparia Shelakach Lei Mered Zakalev. These are the daughters of Bisya, Para's daughter that was born to Mered. These are the children of Bisya, the daughter of Para that Mered married. Now, Mered is Kalev. Mered. Why was he called Mered? Pseudonym. Why does he have that nickname? Shemarad Batsas Meragim, because he rebelled against the council of the spies. That's why he was called Mered. He was called a rebel. Yeah, a rebel in a good way. The Chibisya Yalda. What does it mean? It says over there, is Avigdar Maisha? Which one was? Did Bisya give birth? No, it was Yechevet gave birth. Ella Yechevet Yalda Bisya Gidla, but it was Yechevet gave birth, and all of these are names of Moshe. Yered and Avigdar are Moshe's names. And Bisya raised him, so therefore the Lefikach Nikra al Shma, so Bisya is considered a parent. Okay, Rebbe Lezer Meyach, Rebbe Lezer has another source. It says, Goalta B'Zrei Amecha, redeemed with your nation, your arm. Bnei Yaakov Yosef Sela, the children of Yaakov and Yosef. V'chi Yosef Yalad, Hala Yaakov Yalad. Wasn't Yosef's children the tribe of Egypt? It was Yaakov's children. Hala Yaakov Yalad, the Yosef Kilka Leficha Nikra Shmei, because he supported them. So he's considered. No, that's even more than this support. So here we're saying that's the support itself is considered like giving birth. The other one, it sounded like you had trouble like waking up at night changing diapers. And so, okay, fine, that's apparent. But here it sounds like it's just like he zelled them money. And that would be enough. I'm okay. I'm Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani, I'm Rab Yonason. Shmuel Bar Nachmani, this was the last point that we had in that mnemonic. It says in the name of Rab Yonason, Malamid ben Chaveri Teir Malal of Kasukili Yaldai. Anyone that teaches his friend's child, Torah, that the pasuk considers it as if he gave birth to him. Shenemar Be'ela told us Aaron and Moshe. These are the children of Aaron and Moshe. Ksiv Be'ela Shmeis Bnei Aaron, and these are the names of the sons of Aaron. Leimalach, Aaron Yala, the Moshe Liman, is coming to tell us that Aaron gave birth to them, but Moshe taught them. That's why it's called Ela told us Aaron and Moshe. So it's called his children because he taught them Torah. L'chein kayamar Hashem el Beis Yaakov asher padas Avram. So says Hashem regarding the house of Jacob, the house of Yaakov that redeemed Avram. Some things in Chassidus over here. Where do we see that Yaakov redeemed Avram? Rav Yehuda shepadim mitzagid Labanim. He Yaakov took the raising the 12 tribes, which was something that Hashem had promised to Avram, that he was going to have a great nation. But meanwhile, Avram only had Yitzchak, right? He didn't have this great nation. Where did the great nation come from? Come from Yaakov. So Yaakov saved Avram from having to raise the 12 children. Yeah.
One of the advantages of the rule that the children have to have children.
Yeah, it said that we learned that somewhere, right?
And then here is kind of like the same mitzvah with Ruvu and like teaching the sons to exchange the mitzvah.
It's not discussing the Pruruvu. It's not discussing. I threw that in. The Pruruvu. It's just like an interesting comment, but it's the Gemara here doesn't mean that you fulfill the mitzvah of Pruruvu. The Gemara means that it's like a ki'ilu. It's as if, there's a lot of things in the Gemara that are, it's as if you did this. Someone that gets angry, it's as if they worship idols. That doesn't mean that we kill them, because they worship idols. It's an as if.
There's a nice note here, and Jacob being or Yaakov being ashamed, right? It says because of the hardships involved with raising children, that Yaakov attained a greatness higher than that of Avram Yitzchak just from the hardships.
Wow.
Ian Yaakov.
Ian Yaakov, very nice. So now the pasuk says, and it's Leati Yevish Yaakov. Now Yaakov will not be ashamed. Leati Yevish Yaakov miyav, it won't be ashamed from his father. Leata panav yechbru miyav yav, his face won't be whitened from his grandfather, because he was the one that raised all these tribes, and which is a big deal. We never really discussed that, like how we managed to raise all these children, and what's the scariest word in the English dictionary?
Commitment.
Triplets. Okay. There's a family with quadruplets. They live like around the block from us. I see them walking. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's like it really brightens up your day. These 4 kids.
Are they identical?
I never got that close, but they're in the stroller where they can stand up. It's like a wagon, and they hold on to the side, and they push this wagon with those 4 kids, like just around this. It's really something. Poo, right? Okay, ksiv, paltiel. It says the name palti. It's written sometimes written palti, and sometimes it's written paltiel. Talking about the husband of Michal, that Shaul, who was going to kill David, who was his son-in-law, takes his daughter, the wife of David, and gives her to someone else, the palti. So Rabbi Yochanan says palti shmai. His name was really palti. But I'm going to shmai paltiel. Why was it called paltiel? Shepoltu kel min avera. Hashem rescued him from sin. Ma'asa, what did he do? Not cherev beina lebeina. He took a sword. He put it between the beds. This is palti and Michal. Amar, he said, I guess this was the first night that they're in the same house. Amar, kolaisik b'davar zeh. Anyone that tries to have relations, yidaka b'cherev zeh, will get pierced by this sword.
I think that they left the sword there the whole time.
Right.
And then eventually they keep out, they looked at her and he was punished.
Where did you learn
Out
that?
of the bed,
Where did you learn that? That he was punished?
I think it was in the
In the Medrash? In the Ben Ish Chai that he was punished? Interesting.
because he benefited from looking at her like while she was doing her hair or whatever. But they never really covered it. Finger on it.
The Gemara doesn't critique him at all over here. Oh, that's interesting.
Or they're linked it to another story where it had to do with the eyes. He didn't put a finger on her, but
Maybe you're
benefited
thinking
from
of
it.
something else. Maybe you're thinking of Avimelech with Sarah, where it says "V'hinei lach ksus einayim" when he gives her clothing. One commentary it says because he looked at her.
This was the trick. Like he promised him, like if he killed Claudia, to give him the daughter, and then he married off the daughter to someone else.
Anyone ever hear that? That Palti was he looked at her. So Palti was punished for this. Okay. Anyway, Hillel says he saw it in the Ben Ish Chai. Anyway, it says over here, if we could look it up on this Gemara, we have the
Somebody just asked Conjure. Oh, I might have borrowed it.
Yeah, the Spanish High book one was first out again.
That was here?
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes people check it out.
And you check it back.
Sanhedrin test. I don't see anything over here about that.
12 windsprints.
I'll go buy the book today.
Okay. The Gemara says that he put a sword between them. Anyone that's going to have relations will get pierced by the sword. The Gemara says, 1 second. I have a question. Why were they in the same bed? Shouldn't they have made a separate bed? But it says when she was returning to David, it says that her husband came with her, which is Palti, is walking back with her. It says that he came crying. No, he was, even though it wasn't really her husband, but it was as if it was like it was made to be as if he was the husband. But 1 second, it says that he was walking and crying like he didn't want to give her up. It says he was crying because of the mitzvah that he was doing, that he was refraining from having relations with her. Now he was crying that he wouldn't have that mitzvah anymore. Ad Bachurim says they came to the place Bachurim, and the Gemara Darshans Shnasr named to Bachurim that they were like Bachur, but like Bachurim, like they were bachelors, like Tom Matambia. They didn't taste the taste of relations. Rabbi Yechanan says Taikva shel Yosef and Mesnush shel Bayaz. But when Taikva means the power, the strength of Yosef is humility for Bayaz. Taikva shel Bayaz and Mesnush shel Palta ben Layash. The power of Bayaz is humility for Palta ben Yash, which means that even though Yosef had such a big temptation, but that's nothing compared to the temptation of Bayaz. Yosef's temptation was with Ashes Potiphar. She was a married woman, and she wanted to sin with him, and he got out of there. Boaz is in the middle of the night, and Rus comes and uncovers his feet, and Rus is single, and Boaz doesn't have relations with her. Remember, he says miat. He says, "Who are you?" Right? And then Alpalti ben Layesh is the strongest. The strength of Yosef is the humility of Boaz. Was in the middle of the night. The man got frightened when he feels someone at his feet. And he turned aside. Now, my vayilafas, what does it mean, vayilafas? Amarav shnasa b'soy krashi liftis, that his flesh became like a, how do they translate liftis? Turnip, like a turnip, which meant that he had a increased desire, he had a erection,
Family shear.
and so he was tempted to live with her. Like Vishal Bayaz, the strength of Bayaz on Snusha Shalpat Flesh is the humility of Pat Ben Yash Kedamran, as we said before, that they were together in the same house. It sounds like the same bed with a sword between them. And that wasn't just one night, but that was for several years. Right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "My diksiv," we're on Chaf, on the top of Chaf. My diksiv, what's the meaning of the pasuk? Rabbi Spanas Asachel Batalis Al Kolana. That many daughters did great things, but you surpass all of them. Rabbi Spanas Asachel, this is referring to Yosef Abayas. Funny, it calls them daughters, but it means these men were very great. Yosef and Bayas, Vatalis Al Kolana, but you were surpassed all of them. Zepalti ben Layesh. That's Palti. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman. Rabbi Yenis, usually Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. Says name Rabbi Yenis. Sheker achein behava. What's the meaning of this other verse in Eishes Chayil, which is the end of Mishlei? It says false is vanity, is false is grace, and beauty is vain. Sheker achein the Yosef. This is referring to Yosef. And beauty is vain. I don't understand exactly what the Gemara is saying here. It's saying, I guess, their temptation was nothing compared to Palti ben Layesh. I guess that's
because I read our supposed to. This is a grace was for Yosef because Egyptian women were not beautiful. This is beauty was beautiful. But that's how Boaz resisted by saying beauty is vain. And then the God-fearing woman is saying only fear of God will prevent you from doing what would otherwise be potentially a permissible act if they were married.
They were married. They were married. That was the whole thing.
who was married?
According to Shalos.
Who was married?
One that was supposed to marry. Her father married her off to, I think, was like his commander or general or whatever it was.
But she was already married. She was married to David.
Had said that he was going to give her over.
That was the first one. Now we're talking about the second one. Second one, everyone agrees she was married to David. Yeah. Another pshat. Sheker achein zeder shel Moshe. This is a generation of Moshe. Hevel hayef zeder shel Yeshua. How do they explain this one? Moshe, they studied Torah a lot, and der shel Yeshua. Let's 1 second. That's Torah. There's Years Hashem Yitzal said der shel Chizkiah. That's the generation of Chizkiah. The Gemara says about the Chizkiah that everyone there. Chizkiah was quite a strong leader. He told them that if they don't study, they'll get pierced by the sword, I think. Yeah, that's one incentive to do well on your tests. Davar acher.
It worked.
Yeah, it works, right? Davar acher, another. Want to try that?
Try one.
What is that?
You get A or you get F.
Yeah.
A or the sword?
Good one.
You get a bad rating as a professor.
Right. Always the dean.
Davar sheker achein zeder shel Moshe v'Yeshua. Hevel hayafi zeder shel Chizkiah. Yeres Hashem yitasel zeder shel Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. Now we left this. We're comparing these three generations, Moshe, Yeshua, and Chizkiah. Now we said, okay, Moshe and Yeshua goes together. Now Chizkiah is the next one, and the generation of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai that surpasses all of them. Amar Laval Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai said about Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, Sheisha Talmidim Miskasim B'Talas Echav Eiskim B'Teira. 6 students would cover themselves with one talis, and they would study in Torah. They were so poor, nevertheless they still studied. They needed for one. They all had one coat. The Bali Musar say, how could 6 people be in with one coat? They say because if everyone's trying to take it for themselves, then it's not. It's only enough for one. If everyone's trying to make sure the other one is under it, pushing it over on the other one, then you can get 6 people under.
This is
Okay,
the same generation as everybody else.
Who? Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai?
Yeah, wasn't he one of the Talmidim of Rabbi Kiva?
Yeah. Why
Why?
specifically the Rabbi Lai? I think in his area, wherever he was, I know the Gemara says that he was very poor also. I think Reb Tarfina allowed him to eat beets from his field. I remember in Gemara somewhere. Then there was something else where Rabbi Gamliel says, "How come you didn't come to the Beis Medrash?" He said, "Because my wife had the coat, maybe the shirt." I don't know. So they themselves only had one garment. Also, he's buried on the way to Tzvas. That's not a wealthy place.
Oh, now.
Okay. Mace lay mace. If someone passed away, a relative of the king passed away, before we were talking about the Kohen Gadol and how he comes and together with the Memuna and he does, consoles and they console him and all that. Now we're talking about the king. Someone passed away, he doesn't leave his palace. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, by the way, Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. He says, if he wants to follow the coffin, he's allowed to. David went to the funeral of Avner. You remember how that happened? Avner died. Avner was Shaul's general. Remember, he was the one that took him to his mother, who was the witch. Remember, and then, but then Avner appoints Shaul's son, Mephibosheth, to be the king. That lasted 2.5 years, 2 years or something. Then he comes to David, and he wants to make peace. And earlier on, there was this play fight which turned into a real fight, and Avner ended up killing someone on the other side because this guy was pursuing him. It wouldn't stop. He said, "Please turn around, or else I'm going to have to kill you." Amasa. I think Amasa was his name. It was Yoav's brother.
Asal, no? Asal.
Asal. Thank you. Who was Amasa? Is that another brother? No. Yeah, Asal.
Isha.
Anyway, yeah. So Asal. So then, Yoav, who's the brother of Asal that was killed by Avner. When he hears that Avner came to David, so he runs after Avner, and he is this where he pulls him over on his spear, on his sword or something? He pulls him down onto his sword was sticking out. He hugs him or something, and he kills him like that. Then David was very upset about this because Avner had come to make peace, and then Yoav chases after him. Yoav says, he didn't come to make peace. This is all a trick. He's coming to spy or something. And so based on that story, Yoav kills Abner. Now David wants to show the people that it was not his intent to kill Abner. So he goes to the funeral. Now it says, we see David went to the funeral. It says, Shnemar v'melech David helech acharmita. Amalei, so they told Rabbi Yehuda, they said, that's not a proof. Leia David elefayas esam. That was a special situation. He needed to show the people that he was not involved in the death, in the murder of Abner. When they feed him the meal after the funeral, everyone sits on the ground, but he sits on dargish. We'll see, it's like a stool. We'll see, the Gemara is going to discuss. Where do the women go at the funerals? They go in front of the coffin or behind the coffin. It says, well, it depends on the custom. The custom is to go in front, they go in front. The custom is to go behind, they go behind. Rabbi Yehuda Yehuda says, they have to go in front, they don't go behind. They have to be in front, because we find the pasuk that says that David was behind. David would not be hanging around with the women, so obviously the women must have been in front, and that's why it says David was behind. They said to him, that was a special situation. When the people were appeased, convinced that David was not involved in this. He wanted everyone to see him. Everyone saw that it was not from the king that Abner was killed. It wasn't by his instruction that Abner was killed. And so therefore he went amongst the women. The women should see that he was there at the funeral. Darash Rava. Rava taught. My diksiv, what's the meaning of the pasuk? Vayavei kol ha'am lahavri says David. All the people came to give the meal. It's called Suda Sabra, the meal after a funeral to feed David. Ksiv lahachreis, v'karinan lahavreis. It's written lahachreis. Lahachreis means to cut off, not to feed. It's written lahachreis, but we read it lahavreis. Betchil lahachreis, originally, they wanted to cut him off because they thought that he was the one that instructed to kill Avner. In the end, it was to feed him. In the end, when they saw that how sad he was, then it was they fed him. They gave him the meal to give to a mourner. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. Avner. Why was Avner punished? Why was Avner killed like this? I mean, he was murdered. But why did this happen? Because he should have protested against Shaul killing out the city of Naiv, the city of Naiv Erakainim. They were innocent. They did not know that David was running away from Shaul. They knew David to be one of Shaul's men. He was like a right-hand man of Shaul. And then it's flipped. Then David was running for his life. But they didn't know David as that. So when David was there in that city, they said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm on a secret mission." And they said, "Okay, what do you need?" And they gave him food. So they were totally innocent when they gave him food. And Avner could have protested against Shaul, and he doing it was, I think, Doeg, I think, that carried it out. But Avner should have protested, and he didn't. So that's why he was killed. Rabbi Yitzchak says, so there's a machlekes here between Rav Yehuda Marav and Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Micha v'leinena. Avner actually did protest, but they didn't listen to him. And they both learn this from the same pasuk. It says, Vayikainen hamelech al Avner. The king lamented over Avner. It says, Vayomer, he said, Hakamais naval Yamos Avner, should Avner die like what's a naval, like a worthless person? Yadecha la yasuris, your hands were not tied, Baraglecha la lenachashtim hugashu, and your feet were not, what's lenachashtim? Was like in chains, fetters. That's what they say. You weren't brought in fetters. Okay, so now let's take a look at this pasuk. According to the opinion that says that he did not protest, that's Rabbi Yehuda Marav. The meaning of the pasuk is as follows: your hands weren't tied, which means you should have protested. You were able to protest, and you didn't. And you weren't in fetters. You weren't. Your feet weren't in chains. You were able to protest. My time alay machisa. Why didn't you protest? And therefore you fell like the children of probably iniquity or something, or of sin. That's how you fell. Okay, Mandam Micha, the one that says that he did protest, but they didn't listen. It's Moy Matami. You have to read it as a question, rhetorical question. Hakamais Naval Yamas, like a low person, you're gonna die. You died. Your hands were not tied, which means you did what you were supposed to. You weren't in fetters. You protested. Michti, machvi machisa. You protested. My time can fall. Why did you fall like someone that sinned? So in other words, it ends up with the question instead of as a statement. According to this opinion, though, we're left with the question: why was he killed? Amar Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak. So it says over here, Bar Yitzchak, Shesha Malchus David Shteishana Mamechza, because he delayed the kingdom of David 2.5 years by appointing Mephibosheth as the king in that other area. David, I think, was already king in Hebron, but the people didn't join until after Mephibosheth died, I think. Yeah. Okay.
You weren't supposed to. Sorry.
Tell me
You
again.
weren't supposed to remind people of someone's sins after they passed away. Like at the eulogy, is going to tell people about Avner's sins.
That's a good question. Also, it looks like he's not so sad that he died. And we were trying to say that he is sad. Comes out, it doesn't come out so clear for Rabbi Yehuda Marav.
When we're talking about the meat, there was a commentary here that was like he learned like he did. So and then there's some sort of connection, like this like a student, the past, like everybody wants.
Do you have that Avner was a student of David? Avner was a cousin of Shaul. Ner, I think, Avner ben Ner comes from the tribe of Binyamin, just like Shaul did. I think Ner was a cousin of Kish, or brother of Kish or something. Shaul ben Kish, right? That was his name. After the death of King Shaul, David mourned Avner as a relative, for Avner was a Torah scholar of note. And the Gemara states a wise man dies, all it considers relative and must mourn him. It doesn't say that he learned by him. He was a Torah scholar. Yeah. We're on a different party. Yeah. Okay. When they fed him, it says that everyone would sit on the floor and he would sit on the dargish, on the stool. Amarula, Ula says, the Gemara asks, my dargish, what is the dargish? Amarula, Arsa the Gada. It's a type of bed that was put up just for superstition. And no one would sit on it. It was just like this, like a chamsa, like it was there. This, and he would sit on it. Amali Rabbanan Lula, Rabbanan say, make a midi dada idna la yasvin v'hashtam yasvin. 1 second, you never sit on this chair. It's just a special chair just for good luck. And now you sit him on it when he's mourning. You're supposed to be humbled when he's mourning. Maskef la Rava, my kusha, what's the problem? It's just like feeding him and giving him drink. No one, they never feed him from others. He never takes food from others. He's a king. And now they're going to feed him. So everything is different now. So it's not a question, Eli Kasha, but if you want to have a question on this Hakash, you could ask the following. Dargish Dargish, you don't have to turn it over, you only have to stand it up. Said the God, and if you think it's this little bed that's used just for good luck, why do you have to turn it over? When you have to turn over, one of the ways of mourning in those days was that they would turn over the bed. They would have to sleep on the other side of the bed. I think what happened is the bed meant that it was raised up here, but it had a pole that went a little higher. So when you turned it over, you were much lower down. You know, like a Kiddush cup, some of them have like a little cup on the bottom. That little cup, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, they turned it over, you were on the lower end of the. So you would have to turn not only the beds that they used, but even you have to turn over all the beds. If Dargish is a bed, it would have to be turned over. But here it says you don't turn it over; it's stand it up. It says my kusha. Maybe it's a bed that's used just for utensils. Excuse me, a bed that's made for utensils. You don't need to turn it over. Okay, so we resolve that. Eli kasha kasha. If you want to really ask a question about this Dargish, ask the following. You undo the straps that hold it up, like some of these army cots. They have like a strap that holds it to the poles on the side. So you undo those straps, and then it falls. If you want to say that it's this bed that's made for good luck, does this have these straps? It was made like a regular bed. When Rabban came, he said, Rav Tachlifa told me, one of the sages, that he would frequent in the marketplace of the tanners. He said to him, I don't know who said to who. Oh, Ba'amar Le, I guess it means that Rav Tachlifa said to Ravin, my Dargish, what is this Dargish? Arsa de Tila, it's a bed made out of leather. And then that had straps. Okay, and why didn't you have to turn it over, stand it up, because it would get dirty? Rabbi Yirmiyah says, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Dargish, Sirugay Mitaychai, that its straps went through the frame, not around the frame, but actually with a hole in the frame. Mita Sirugay Mal Gaba, but if it was a bed, then the straps went over the frame. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. When does a wooden vessel become tamei? We're talking about that. The frame was wood. Hamita varisa, the bed and a crib. Nishiyashufim ba'aradag. When you smear it with fish oil, with the skin of a fish. Now, imita miseregasi mialgaba. But if the dargish has the straps are covering over the frame, lamali shivas aradag. So why do I need to polish the frame if you don't see the frame, because it's covered over with the leather? Rather, both of them, they go through the frame. The straps go through the frame. Mita yule ba'fuki b'b'tzione, dargish yule ba'fuki ba'avkasa. One of them went through with a hole through it, and one of them had loops. You would like buckle it in or something. Rav Yaakov. Yeah. Oh, they have. Okay. I have a picture there. Rav Yaakov, Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Allah Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Say the Allah is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, which says, what did Reb Shimon ben Gamliel say? What does it say over there? Or is it coming? Maybe it's coming up. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Barami Mita Shenaklita Yoitzin Zoikva V'Daya. A bed that has a post that goes up, that sticks up, that it was like a canopy bed, so you can't turn it over because it was going to fall like this. So you just have to stand it up sideways.
Wow.
And that's what you do for the. We don't do it today. We don't turn over beds anymore.
These are
Yeah. Let me see what your says about your chimney. Halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that a mourner is not required to overturn a dargish, but only untie the straps around the post to let it fall on its own. Yeah, so that was the Gemara before. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good day.
Go back to. Oh, yeah, half page.
Joe has Joe.